welcome to WTPN Network. I'm here, Doug Mahler, your host, with Mr. Ed Dolezal. And I have with us Mr. Eddie. It's Ed and Eddie today. We got the double Eddies going, Ed and Eddie. Eddie Cook, who is, he's a Patriot from Georgia. And, you know, for a long time, we've been on this network, and I've always said that the WTPN network is We the People Network because it's the people's network. And our goal was to have patriots that have something to say, not any people that are famous or have a big spotlight or anything, but just have been working people who love our country and are educated and understand and comprehend what's going on. And Eddie came across my path through a mutual friend in Georgia, friend Patty. I call her Peppermint Patty, and she'll get a kick out of that. And we started to talk on the back channels, and Eddie was very impressed with all the stuff that he knows. And I said, why don't you come on the show? And, you know, we'll start out asking us some questions about the General Assembly and the grand jury. And Ed was gracious to take his time to come on as well. And we'll see if we can actually answer the questions. But Ed, why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your family and you know what your life is about?
Sir, yeah, it's truly an honor to be on your show here, and I love what you got going. WTPN is like it's an amazing show you got, and I'm just a hardworking guy, you know, approaching 60 years old from North Georgia. Just gets my hands in the dirt, and you know, I'm tired of seeing a lot of the people I know that are so broke they can barely pay their light bill, and the things that's going on in the world with from the things the FDA approves in our food all the way up to the water and everything else. It's just totally out of control. And I want to do every little part for myself on my part that I can do to help. You know, what you got going on there is like, it just seems like you got the best show on the internet, on the Rumble.
That's okay. Thank you so much. Tell us about your family. Do you have any kids or what's
Yep. I actually have four grown kids, and then I got a little surprise miracle messenger guy is 7 years old. So I'm going on for the second round of raising a little one, and got the wife and the kids and small business, and just try to do what we can do about standing for what's right, even when it's not popular. And I just want to be involved in something that's moving forward.
right? Now, what you have a daughter who's in the military, right? Is she in Tennessee?
Yes, she's at Fort Campbell. She's a sergeant up there in Fort Campbell in the Army.
What's her name?
Her name is Haley Morgan Cook.
All right. Well, Haley, I want to thank you for your service. And then you have a son, your youngest you just talked about. What's his name?
Yeah, his name is Julian Justice.
Julian Justice. Now,
Yeah.
what was that all about?
Well, I don't know. It seems like we have possibly some gematria going on with all the numbers connected to his birthday and the year he was born, and a lot of numbers. Let's see. I think the his weight was actually my birthday. His exact weight was my birthday. The time of day he was born was exactly to the minute his mother's birthday. And then he has these star numbers 1111 in his birthday.
Wow.
He was born in the year 2017. And of course, his name was inspired from the guy that we feel like started the whole revolution movement, Julian Assange. Just, you know, he's my hero for what he done and what he risked his life to put out there. And and then you know, of course, we were anti-vax a long time before my little guy came along, and so he's never had a vaccine, and he seems like you're talking to a 7-year-old adult. I don't want to just like keep on blowing my own horn and my beloved son, but it's pretty amazing, and he kind of lives up to his expectations so far.
So this is a great story, Ed, because this is a situation where we have a youngster who's been brought into this world recently and is completely awake right? Which is kind of healthy, because I know I got 18 and 20-year-olds, and they're, one of them's pretty awake and the other one is completely woke. And so, but they're both going through mental trauma because of it. But we have here, whereas a new generation coming up awake by a patriot dad who's teaching them to be awake. I think this is a really interesting story in itself. And I want to commend you on that. Ed, have anything to say about that, Ed below?
I'm not surprised, quite honestly, Eddie, because you're right. There is a expansion of consciousness, if you will, throughout the world. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon. She was a remote viewing hypnotist, and she was told that there were several generations that came to Earth in order to help with the transition to what we're going through now. And unfortunately, the prior generations, my children, they didn't have the same software as our younger children do now. The younger ones, our grandchildren, you're going, whoa, where did that come from? They just seem to be connected and so much more sharper than I remember myself to be. So I think that where we are focused on realizing we have to do the work. They don't have to. All they have to do is be present. And their energy, if you will, just shines out there, and they affect everything around and the people. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, there's talk about the star children, right? But our consciousness is, we're always thinking our body, and our consciousness is not in here. Our actual consciousness is out here. It is around us, right? So these children, they don't think the way that we've been conditioned to think, that everything is internal inside of our body, right? And everything that goes in is inside, and even our brains and our consciousness, everything's inside. But it's not. It's actually outside. Our consciousness is, our aura and our consciousness is around our body. How far out it goes, that's up to, I guess, where you are in your level of development. But these children, they're already there. They're walking with this understanding of their consciousness as an outward thing, and they're receiving messages openly. And with you doing what you're doing, filling them in on the truth and not hiding them from what's happening today, they're just expanding on that. That's very, very cool. I really like that. So Julian Cook.
Can I just qualify something, which I heard very recently? I think it's very true. We think of ourselves as being the containers for our soul, but actually we are the soul, period. Right. That's it. We're a soul. And we're just walking around doing God's work. Right? Well, these children are coming along now, no veil. They don't have to make any connections. It's already there. They're tapped in. So we have a lot to learn from them.
Yeah, I try to, not go too far with teaching him. I take a real subtle approach and ease him into it, and he catches on. I just got through mentioning to him yesterday that it's kind of funny. He's a 7-year-old child, and he knows more about the truth than most of the adults that I see out here on the road. I mean, he understands things that I explain to adults. He just catches on. I teach him everything with my business. He can already drive my Bobcat. I mean, I let him move trucks around in the yard and stuff when I'm watching him close. And he tells me about when I'm getting ready to go to work. He'll give him my checklist. Did you get the pin in the hitch? And where are you taking this load of logs to? He understands things like way more than I did when I was that age.
Yeah. I have a 9-year-old grandson. The same thing. He drives a front end loader in the backyard, and it's crazy stuff. Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to trifecta here on that one. My 18-year-old came up and helped me out. I had like, I don't know, 16 tons of rock to move, and it was down in a kind of down a hill. And I rented a mini Bobcat, and I was a little trepidatious on the back of that thing, standing up, going down. Well, he hopped on it, and with his video game, usage, he was wheeling that thing around. I mean, we got done in like 2 days. It should have taken us 6 or 7 days to do. So I took advantage of that right there. But I understand what you're all saying. Now, I'm excited too because Eddie here, like I said, he's a Patriot, and we've been opening up the platform to Patriots. And I don't mean to say an average guy, because you're certainly not an average guy. You are very, very well versed on a lot of issues, very well studied over the years, and that's exciting. And we thought we'd have Eddie back maybe on for some other episodes if it works out for him and us. But Eddie's he's a guy who not only has just been a working guy, but he's had his hands attached to the earth. He's kind of a tree hugger, but he's not a hippie. He's a guy who has been, trimming trees, cutting trees, and hauling logs all his life. One of the most dangerous things you can do. I know, because I do it now and again, and it's not fun. And so he's been really attached, Ed, connected, to the ground and to the earth, And so I thought all those things with the stuff with his son and the names and, with the stuff he has and the fact that he had that career, I said, this has got to be a divine intervention. We got to have Eddie on. So Eddie, you had some questions for us, about the assembly. I know you're not real versed on it. You're kind of new to that, maybe a month or two, and, looking to become maybe part of the General Assembly in Georgia. I'm not sure if you moved in that direction. Are you looking into doing that now? Is that?
Yeah. So I'm learning quite a bit. Like I may have mentioned to you earlier, like when I get interested in something, I kind of like I just go in full 100%. So I've been learning it pretty quick. And one question I was wondering is, so the grand juror assembly, that's basically that's the counties forming and coming together with it. Is it 13 members per county? Is
So,
that
so two things, two things. You have the General Jural Assembly, and there's only one per county, and you can have as many members in the General Jural Assembly as you wish. It's going to be you're going to need a lot of help anyway. So that's that, and there's only one per county. The grand jury is composed of 25 members. They don't necessarily have to be part of the General Jural Assembly, but they can. The reason it's beneficial is because most General Jural Assemblies are focused on education. So it's a natural thing for them to say, yeah, I'll participate in a grand jury. And some will be very studied, and they can be administrators and investigators. So that's 25. Then you also have the Common Law Court of Record, or the Petit Jury. That's 12 men and women. And that could be used for due process of law. And those are the numbers, essentially. So the difference is, when you have a case that's brought to the grand jury, you have to have 50% plus one. So that's 13 members of the grand jury that will decide whether you have a bill or no bill, right? A true bill or no bill. And then on the other hand, on the Common Law Court of Record, you need 12 men and women, and their decision is unanimous, must be unanimous. Otherwise, they walk. Does that answer your question?
It's kind of like the commercial law, admiralty law is like 12 on the grand jury. There's also 12, or an unanimous vote.
I did serve on a de facto grand jury. We were more than 12 people. I seem to remember, it's been a while. And all of the cases that were presented to us as a grand jury de facto grand jury. They were all murder cases. And all the evidence was pretty convincing. So it was a unanimous decision of the grand jury to approve the information that was provided, the case that was provided to us. And then it was taken to court. And, we were no longer involved. And it was kept secret. So there's some comparable features to the de facto and the common law grand jury, except that we didn't know any of the people that were being accused. Now, under common law, it has to be a jury of your peers, because there's reputation of the individual, man or woman, has to be taken into account by people that know them, and the facts have to speak for themselves, right? For themselves. So we don't really focus a lot on the de facto at all. Had I known back then what I know now, I would have recused myself, because the de facto courts are a corporation. They give the impression that they are upholding justice, but it's not always the case. While under common law, that is always the case. We want to work to provide a just decision. We're not influenced by the people involved, just the facts and the evidence. Does that answer your question?
Sir, thank you.
Well, if I can, Ed is being very disingenuous. I don't fully agree with the fact that the de facto courts are, I don't know exactly how you put it, often or sometimes they're fair. I don't agree with that. I think it's all stacked against you. When you go in to be a juror, not necessarily a grand jury, but a juror in jury duty, you are hand selected. You were asked questions by the lawyers, by the judge. You are pigeonholed into different things you can and cannot do, the way you can act, the questions you can ask. And they're looking for people, specifically selecting people that are going to fit into their mold. And they're telling you what you can and cannot do. Matter of fact, we've talked about this in the past. When you go to get called for jury duty, it's the American duty is to get out of jury duty, right? That's the first thing people want to do. But the first thing you should do as a common law person is try to get on the jury, and what we call taint the jury. It's not a negative meaning. It's a positive effect in the sense that you want to get on the jury and let people know, hey, unless somebody was harmed here, we can't really convict this guy. If he drove down a one-way street and nobody was killed, he could have made a mistake. God's law says that there is a nullification, and that doesn't work within this courtroom in this jurisdiction of maritime law, right? So these statutes and laws, we got to be careful. We got to make sure that we're doing what we're doing. So you can actually teach the jurors within the jury, what we really should do, and talk to them about how the court and the judge is actually working for the same corporation that the lawyers are. So there isn't a chance in heck this person's going to get a fair trial anyway, okay? Because it's all one system. It's all the corporation. And so it's all a setup. So I respectfully disagree a little bit with what Ed said. And in the fact that I don't think you can get any kind of a fair trial at de facto court. Anyway, kind of making a joke about it, Ed, you know that. Eddie, any other questions?
Well, one point I'd like to just say about that is, then if you're found guilty in the maritime law, Admiralty Maritime, Roman law, commercial law, if you're found guilty, then you pay fines and it all goes to them. It seems like a lot of the times, or in most situations, it seems to go to the Justice Department or whatever, the courthouse, instead of the victim. Although sometimes I've heard of, people having to pay the victim for damages, but most of the time it seems like 90% of it goes straight into the system.
Right. Yeah, and we know why that is too. We just did a show on that the other day. If you want to go back, actually, I think it's tonight at 5 o'clock. Haley's show will be coming on, and we talked about the trusts, the Sisti QV trusts, right? And how they every time they fine you and take money that we pay, they hit our trust for the same amount of money. They're double dipping in our trust accounts. So yeah, it's to their advantage to not give restitution to others, but get restitution for themselves and collect fines. So that's an interesting. You can got anybody. You'll see that show tonight. It'll be airing tonight around 5 o'clock. So
Well, the other thing I wanted to add, a big difference between common law and maritime law. The state cannot be a victim. Cannot be a victim. So, you're never going to have that issue under common law. While in maritime, corporate, Roman law, whatever it is, they're doing it all the time, 24/7.
And like the pharmaceutical companies, they can't be held liable.
That has been, again, I'm not an expert in the commercial or admiralty law, but I believe that they have found a way around it because the representations that were made at the time were not accurate. So because of those misrepresentations, I believe that they are open to suits and a remedy. And by the way, I seem to recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a compensation fund that had been opened up, and it has been successfully tapped by victims of the virus shot, right? The coronavirus. So it's there. I'd have to do some research, but I do remember that it is in place.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of stories coming to the surface, or more word is getting out, and more people are listening. I don't know if the CDC took responsibility for anything more than they already have, but I heard that there's really a lot of stuff coming to the surface with people that was harmed or lost their life.
Yeah, I think Eddie, the we're splitting hairs here, but they're important issues. The vaccination was supposed to cure and prevent. And in fact, all of the research that was done for this vaccination being put together was with a totally opposite purpose. They introduced certain components, aluminum, snake poison,
graphene oxide.
Yeah, graphene. I mean, it wasn't what they said it would be. So they misled and misrepresented, and therefore, given that, it is fraud. And so they are no longer protected under the so-called blanket protection from liability. I think that's the way it went.
Yeah. So is this do you think this will lead back to, I mean, we don't know when the tidal wave is building, it's gonna roll over one day. Do you think, I mean, like, this sounds like Nuremberg 2.0. I mean, these people blatantly caused harm, and then hid the cures of the known, the hydroxychloroquine, and ivermectin, that, oh, you can't take that, it'll give you heart disease, or that's horse medicine, you can't take that, and we want to get you on this ventilator, and the what's the name of that one, the one medication they tried to get everybody on, that causes your
Remdesivir.
yes, causes the kidneys to shut down, fluid to build up. Then you got the ventilator. I mean, and then they're making bonuses for the people that die.
Yeah, they were incentivized to kill people.
I mean, is this the Twilight Zone on steroids?
This, being on Earth is what you make of it. You have angels and you have demons. And unfortunately, there are a lot of demons running around. And also, fortunately, many people are now stepping back and saying, I don't want to participate in this hell that I have unknowingly been acting in, and I am going to change my life, do what needs to be done, open a business, sell a product, be part of a co-op, teach, whatever the case might be. Everybody has a skill. And if they don't, they should learn one, but everybody has some talent to bring to society. So I think that they've kind of made it easy because they have concentrated their power in a few hedge funds like BlackRock and so on. And it's pretty easy for us to see where we do not want to spend our money. I'd rather buy my meat from a rancher, which I just did this past week, and also patronize a farmer where I get my fresh vegetables. I know where they come from, And the same thing, we know people that are good at websites like Doug, right? And we know people that are good at, learning a skill such as common law. People are good at teaching. Some people are good at mentoring, and on and on and on. We don't need to play in their sandbox. There is no sandbox as far as we're concerned. You don't have to think outside of the box. There is no box. That's the bottom line.
On that note, could you tell us a couple of one-liners that one might use if you get pulled over for a traffic citation?
Here's my driver's license and here's my insurance.
Oh.
Don't fight that stupid battle. It's not worth it.
Yeah. I thought I heard one show talking about, I thought it was one of Doug's shows in the previous few weeks back where they were talking about your driver's license is all capital letters. And, one guy was talking about, he would tell the police officer, that's not him. Which Eddie Cook are you looking for? Are you looking for the sovereign child of God standing on the land? Are you looking for the all caps one that's connected to the corporation? Which one are you looking for?
Eddie, the policy enforcer, which is what we call the police, they don't comprehend that. They are not educated. They were not given that training. All they're going to see is, oh, this guy's being a pain in the ass. I'm going to hit him up with the most expensive ticket I can get. And then you get into all kinds of issues. It's not worth the battle. We have bigger fish to fry.
I do understand that, you've said several times, I've heard you say, we use this as a defensive mechanism, not an offensive play against, the maritime.
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to a bunch of people out there. One in particular is, what's his name? Boris, I guess. And he was saying he uses theology. Admit your guilt. Tell them they can access your Sister KV trust, and you reserve the right of subrogation because the courts want to be paid. So you tell them, yeah, go get the money over there. but I have a right of subrogation. I think that's what it was. It's been a while since I've listened to him.
Yeah, we talked about this, if I can. This is a good question, and I'm sure we did bring it up at another show, and that you weren't hearing things. You know, but it's part of the education of understanding that if you were brought into court and the judge asked for your name, you might say, well, I don't know exactly who you're looking for. Could you tell me exactly who you're looking for? Is it the name in caps is not me. I'm so-and-so who sometimes goes by the name of Doug, living on the land. If you're looking for that name in caps, well, then you'll have to look elsewhere because that's not me. So it's more of a training that you probably heard than more of us saying, use this in application when a cop pulls you over. In the past, though,
Well, could I just
sorry.
mention?
Yeah.
So again, there are no Article 3 courts. Article 3 courts are common law courts right now, right? So if for any reason you have to appear in court, the first question is, what jurisdiction am I in? Is this a maritime law court? Or is this a common law court? They will weave and dodge. And then eventually, if you persist, they'll have to admit that it's a admiralty law court. In which case you say, well, I'm a man, a living man on the land. My jurisdiction is common law. Therefore, you must recuse yourself, and I demand to have a magistrate, not a judge, a magistrate, because the people who judge is the jury, right? I demand to have a magistrate who is familiar with process and procedures of common law. That's it.
Wow.
So the key thing is, don't wind up in court.
Right. And the key thing is that, you know, everyone's looking for a panacea, like give me the simple equation. You know, can I take this pill and that pill? You know, it's funny. I did a cleanse, and you're a health guy. I did a cleanse, and I stay away from cleanses because often they are very overwhelming. You have to take, you know, 3 pills and then 4 pills, and then the next day you have to take 6 pills and 3 pills, and it's just too complicated. So I found this cleanse that was 2 pills in the morning, 2 pills at night. I said, I'm in. So I did it, and I actually accomplished it, 2 weeks cleanse. But everyone's looking for that simple solution within common law. And that's why I do, and I'll bring her up again, Kiki. I do like what she's doing because she's bringing awareness to common law, but people are still levitating and looking for different solutions to, oh, what did they do? And let's all do that. And you know, and so it's not really that simple. And so we're always advocating, you know, to be very careful and to really know, to really be a well-versed student of common law before you ever have to put yourself in a position to use it. And Ed's right. I mean, I've been in a situation where a policeman's pulled me over, and I said, well, I'll say to them, hey, listen, he takes the ticket, do you understand? You know, and I said, no, I don't stand under you, and I comprehend that I didn't do anything wrong, and I don't want that ticket, and I'm not signing it. But you know, he's still going to either throw it at you or make you force you to sign it. It's not a good idea not to sign your ticket. It doesn't matter either way. They can actually arrest you for not signing your ticket. You know, what I did. Everybody's got to take their own path, but you're going to end up having to be part of that system. We're going to take away your driver's license, you know, your registration. You're in the system. You signed into it. And the problem is that we've all signed into it, except for our birth certificate, which our parents did unknowingly, signing us into the system. We are all signing in every time we register, get a gun license, you know, get a business permit, get a marriage certificate. We're signing into the system. We're opting in. And so everybody wants to opt out. They want the easy opt out and want the easy answer and what to say. There is no easy answer. You must become a very well-versed student of common law. You must immerse yourself in it. And then you can stand in your sovereignty.
And you have to be conversant. You have to become conversant through the education that you received, and you have to build a confidence. Here's something that I shared with Doug a year ago or so, actually over a year ago. And this is you're standing in common law. I, the man, sometimes known as Edward, hyphen last name is Dolezal, am one people of we the people in sui juris. Any charges against me must be in writing, and I will take them to the statewide common law grand jury, and they will respond to you according to the rules of common law. Furthermore, I hold the Fifth Amendment, and you shut up. So this is very powerful if you happen to be in a court situation. But you must be, number one, knowledgeable. Number two, you better have a common law grand jury that has been stood up and educated and operational in your county. Because if you hold this and you say, well, you know, these charges are going to go to my grand jury and there's no grand jury, you're up the creek without a paddle, right? So all the more urgency to get 25 people. Hopefully some are going to be educated so they can be teachers, but get them through the training. Very important. A grand jury, again, you don't need to have a general assembly to have a grand jury, and you don't necessarily have to have just one in the county. You can have multiple grand juries in the county. So just by knowing this verbiage, it's an incentive in and of itself to have a grand jury up and running. Make sense?
Yes, thank you. Well, so that kind of leads me into one question I wanted to ask was about is there so there's I've kind of figured it out over the past 24 hours. I don't think there's probably any common law claims going on right now, like anything that's happening right now. And then, I mean, how many has it been? 100 and something years since the last common law claim was settled?
Well, I wouldn't say that there hasn't been any resolution using common law, quite to the contrary. If you're really looking for some evidence, you can go to statewide commonlawgrandjury.com, which is the grand jury that we have set up in Florida. And there are a lot of cases that are on there, a lot of evidence. And the second thing is a lot of people, either knowingly or unknowingly, use a claim process. Claim is what we use in common law, right? Your dog jumped over the fence and killed my chicken. And
All the time.
say what?
That
Yeah.
happens all the time.
It can. I remember my children had a rabbit, and the next door neighbor's Siberian Husky jumped over the fence and had a good lunch. You know, fortunately, the neighbor said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you know, we'll replace it." And my wife said, "No, that's okay. That's fine. Don't worry about it." But, you know, those kinds of claims happen all the time. And there's a process to that. There's, you know, you file a claim with the evidence and you ask them within a 10-day period to respond. Then you do a second reminder. And then the third time, if they don't respond, then they become self-convicted, right? And then depending upon the degree of harm or trespass, you may want to take it to common law grand jury. And, you know, then that gets a little bit more complicated. But, you know, common law issues, trespasses and so on, you knock down a mailbox or who knows? I mean, lots of crazy things. So people resolve issues that are not major, basically, all the time.
Okay.
And that's just pure common sense, right?
There has to be a general assembly or a grand jury in that county to do this, even on small claims. there has to be a grand jury, right?
No, my point is, I just made the point, I thought that you can actually file a claim against an offender by just letting them know what happened, what date, what the circumstances were, the cost to remedy, and you're asking them to do it by a certain date. So you don't have to necessarily take it to a grand jury. It could eventually go there, but it doesn't necessarily have to. A lot of times people, they may not be aware of, they're driving a truck and they back into something and they cause damage to another vehicle or knock down a fence post or whatever the case is. And, it can get resolved that way. But yeah, claims can go to the grand jury if necessary, or if the evidence is very, is undeniable evidence there, you can skip that and take it to a common law court of record. And you have 12 jurors that look it over and, do what they need to do. It's a more complicated process. I just always tell people, look, reserve the grand jury and the common law court of record for things that are more complex, if you will, because the small stuff can get resolved just by goodwill more than anything else. At least it should be that way. And that, brings us back to what you mentioned earlier, Eddie, which is there's this whole up-leveling of consciousness. People's consciences will say, you're right, I'm sorry, I'll fix it. Or I didn't intend to do that, I'll fix it. So we're gonna be dealing with people, people's characters are gonna be at a whole different level. We're gonna be following God's law. And then Doug and I were kicking this around earlier on, which is, you can study common law all you want intellectually, but ultimately there has to be an understanding that we're really following God's law, period. We're doing what God intended us to do. If we want to return to the way things were, in the 1700s, I'm not talking about kings, but, just mutual respect and so on, we have to follow God's law. So that's the way I look at it.
If people are treating their neighbors as they like to be treated, then that will resolve a lot of the conflicts on its own.
Correct.
Yeah, I like Ed's analogy. I mean, really what it does is it really shows the simplicity of common law, and that, we're by nature just mutual respect, acting out of respect for yourself and others. We're already working common law. It already exists. It's already there. We don't need statutes and the government to come between us and get involved. In some cases where things are more serious, and it does require investigation, and it does require situations where people are not adhering to their principle of restitution, then there has to be taken to another level, grand jury or something. But we're already working this system because it comes natural to us as people. That's why it's based on natural law. God's law is natural law. It comes down. It's natural law, and the laws of the principles of God's principles are carried over into common law, and we the people, and then we have our grand juries and our election process, and that's the balance to keep everything. And then all government is underneath that. Your legislative, executive, judicial branch, and all other public servants. That's the pyramid. The pyramid has been reversed, right? They now have the government at the top. They've removed God. They've removed the Constitution, or replaced it with their Constitution and statutes. And then we, the people, are below. And so they've flipped the pyramid, so to speak, on us. But naturally, we know what's right. We know what God inherently put in us as to what's fair and right. And it's simple. And so that's what common law is. So I like that whole conversation we had, because hopefully it clicked for some people about how we're using common law every day.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to,
you broke my pencil. Yeah. Oh, well, let me replace it.
Yeah. Let me just also mention that the reason we're here today quite honestly, is because our civil servants have gone rogue. Senators, presidents, representatives, judges, prosecutors, mayors, blah, blah, blah. They've gone rogue. They do whatever they want, they think. So that's why we've been advised to collect the evidence. And fortunately for us, at least in Florida, I'm not sure about the other states, we have the Sunshine Law. Everything has to be recorded, everything has to be publicly available, and we can demand and use that evidence against them, right? Accumulate that evidence so when the time comes and we're ready, we can proceed and do what needs to be done to cure the trespasses and injuries that they have caused. You know, thinking about people that have been handicapped or died from the vaccination, it's mind-boggling. You know, I mean, I'll just focus on one particular group because I'm a pilot as well, general aviation pilot. All the pilots, the commercial pilots that fly those commercial airlines, that felt that in order to keep their jobs, they volunteered through coercion that they took those shots. And they're not talking about it much, but statistics are now coming out, whether it's in the military as well and in commercial airline pilots are seriously handicapped or died in the cockpit. And I know because I have to go for my physical every year for the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. Anybody that, you know, says, well, I got the vaccination, they can't fly. They cannot fly. So, and if you lie on your application, your medical application, that's perjury, and that's even a bigger issue. So anyway, there are a lot of people who are going to receive compensation. I just hope that the so-called white hats have collected enough gold that they can parlay into reparations for these people.
Amen. With that being said, do you think the Federal Reserve is hanging by their last thread?
Well, there's a lot of scuttlebutt, let's put it that way, that the Federal Reserve was actually folded into the Treasury 4 or 5 years ago, and they're not able to print any more money. So I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's the scuttlebutt. And then secondly, a lot of what's taking place in the House of Representatives, the de facto corporate system, and pretty much everywhere in government, it's all a show. I mean, us three here comprehend what's happening. A lot of other people are going, that can't be true, you know? So they're just letting this thing ride so that the pain becomes at some point intolerable for pretty much 95% of the people, right? And they're going to go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was that bad. They're lying with their statistics. They're lying with the inflation. In fact, we added inflation to one of our PowerPoint presentations not too long ago, which is the most insidious taxation that exists. In fact, I was asked the other day, again, I'm a pilot, right? Somebody asked me, what does it cost to fly for an hour in an airplane today? About $185, $200 an hour for a single engine aircraft. When I started flying back in the 70s, it was $30. $30. So what does that translate to in terms of inflation? Pretty bad. You know, the cost of fuel, the cost of manufacturing, aluminum, this, that. It's sick.
All right. Well, I think we've touched on a couple of things. Ed, is there anything else? Eddie, is there anything else that you want to just bring forward or discuss or have a question on today? Or
Well, yeah, I think it all is just a big show, you know, and all these people that refuse to stand up and stand for the truth, they're holding us all up before we can get to our good day, you know. And because I mean, the BRICS money system is all gold back, and a lot of countries are jumping off of the Federal Reserve System, and that seems to be where all the wars came from over the past several decades. You know, was like if you didn't want the Federal Reserve, if these countries didn't want the Federal Reserve over there, the next thing you know, our military is over there going after their government or overthrowing them, and it's just been just like a snowball headed for hell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a meltdown. There's no question about that. It's a meltdown.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think we need to end on an up note, which is basically things may look not that good at this point in time. However, I have complete confidence in the resolve and the energy and creativity and entrepreneurial spirit of the American people. And once we get rid of the impositions that they have placed upon us, whether we subscribe to them or not, we will be back in a heartbeat and everybody will want to trade with us again. Not a problem. We have tons of gold, we have tons of oil. There are parts of the Grand Canyon that are off limits where they've hidden interesting history, and also the allegation, the scuttlebutt is that there's gold in them there hills, basically.
Sure.
So we're not a poor nation, neither in spirit or in drive and creativity. We'll be back in very short period of time.
We just
Yeah,
got to go through the birthing pains.
Yeah, well, the war is it is a war. Let us not think otherwise. There's not battles in the street, but there's a war going on, underground, deep underground bases wars and other types of wars, information war, and there's things that are happening. But I always say that the war is won. Really, the head's been cut off the snake, and you know the opposition is still very dangerous, and we still have this de facto government in place manipulating the people. So we've got work to do, but technically the war is won. People are afraid of the next lockdown because they had the minutia and the fear of the last one, which was the reason for it. But I want to advise people not to be living in fear. You know, fear is not of the Lord, number one, and two, we're not going to feed into the fear and feed into the rhetoric and what they want, and they feed off of that. Prepare yourself with some water and food, gas, if you can afford a generator and things like that. Do whatever you can do for your family. We have a flyer, the flag program we use. I don't know if you guys are going to adapt it up there, but we go around to our neighborhoods and we put a flyer on every mailbox or door that has a flag, and we try to connect our communities. And there's a program on the WTPN Live site about flyer a flag and how you can get your community together. We should be in community and assembly, but even just community for if something happens, to be in service to others and to be in service to yourself. But I believe this next lockdown coming is a very positive one. I'm extremely positive every day. I'm looking forward to it. One, I couldn't think of anything better than not having a television and a phone and a computer for 2 weeks. I think it's going to completely change everyone's frequency and mindset, and opens up us to a world that we didn't even know existed, that we've forgotten and walked away from years ago. But this lockdown is a lockdown where the doors will be locked, but once they're open, they will be open to a new world. And I'm not one of these unicorn and daisies. It's not going to be like this. It's going to take 3 to 5 years or more for us, we the people, to stand up and finish cleaning up the mess. But this lockdown is nothing to be afraid of, as long as you have some food and you're prepared. In some of the cities where things are worse, you might have some problems, and there who knows what's going to happen. But I think it's a good thing. They'll be cleaning up the remnant of arrests that are being made, as Ed mentions. There's over 4,000 indictments, 99 people per indictment available. Several million people that are going to be rounded up and arrested. We're going to have opportunity to witness this, or some of this information will be coming out. We're already seeing, you can feel it. You can feel it's coming, right? And we know that there's a timeline. It has to happen before the election. Something major has to happen before the election. So whether it's false flags or anything else or whatever, things are going to happen. And in that shakedown, we're going to see exposure. And within that exposure, hopefully, we'll get our lockdown. And when we do, and we open those doors, we're going to be opening up to a new world. So it's a very positive thing. Nobody should live in fear. And I want to emphasize that on the show before we go, that it's a positive thing that's happening, and we've already won the war. So keep and stay connected.
One last thing is that when there is a transition, like Doug was mentioning, there could be a vacuum, and that puts a lot of urgency on us to create and stand up our General Jury Assembly and our grand juries, because we have to be ready and operational before that. So we have no leeway. We got to get it done now.
No, I hear you. That's right.
Well, Eddie, do you have any final comments or statement you'd like to make, or anything you'd like to say before we go? Because I got to get to editing, and it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and thanks for all the information. And we'll be staying close in tune here with following the lessons that y'all are putting out.
Yep, I appreciate it, and we want to invite you and others. We do have a blog, and it is the People's Blog. So if you want to, I know you said you might be working on one. I know other people are. People are starting to submit stuff, and so just feel free to submit a blog. And if it's within parameters, we're not vetting things, but we're not gonna put anything up that's giving the trafficking people an advantage. You understand? So, but yeah, submit it, but participate. If you'd like to submit a blog, we'll take a look at it and post it. And, if there's something else that's pressing on your heart, let us know, and maybe we'll have you back on.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to get to meet you, Ed and Doug. It's really, really, truly a surprise for me to get to be here, and I appreciate it.
All right, Eddie, all the best to you. God bless you and your family.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Take care now. Okay, I'm going to say that we the people is a term that declares that the Constitution derives its power not from the king, not from the president or the Congress, but from we the people themselves. And this podcast is most certainly the People's Channel. Please contact us and let us know what you'd like to hear and see. And please share and follow the link below. Thank you all for your time and patience and your support. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye now.